Hello, everyone. This is The Empress Speaks, and I am back to talk to you a little bit today about something very serious. And I think I did a little prelude or intro to it earlier when I talked about PLTSD, and that's past life traumatic stress syndrome, and signs you have unhealed emotional wounds. Before we get into this, let me just say for those of you who do not believe in past lives or karmic cycles or things of that nature, this might not be the video for you. The majority of us that are on this channel understand that, and those that are subscribed to this channel understand that. But if that is not your vibe, this is not the video for you this evening. Today is July 26, 2023. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to kind of get into the topic of what is past life traumatic stress syndrome. One thing I will say before we get started is that this can show up very early on. Lots of movies, some of the best horror movies have been made about this, regarding children who are quote unquote bad seeds because we don't quite understand where their negative and toxic and demonic behaviors come from. You know, we all have a light and a dark side, okay? And we're all here to do our shadow work. And some of us have more shadow work to do than others, or some of us have more trauma that has, fallen into this life cycle than others do. And sometimes we will see that manifested or playing out very early on, even as a child. I am quite familiar with children who are exhibiting signs of past life traumatic stress. I worked at a juvenile detention facility in my career early on. It was a non-serious juvenile high-intensity training, like a boot camp facility. And I knew of children, young boys, who had been sentenced to our boot camp training that, you know, their files seemed to show that they exhibited signs of truancy, just negative behavior outbursts, incorrigible, if you will, delinquency, if you will, whatever you want to call it. They started to exhibit these signs very early, as if the child had made up its mind, you know, to be wayward in some type of way, or to exhibit, you know, a lot of times they exhibit these outbursts as a cry for help. You know, someone help me, not just psychologically, but help me on a spiritual level. And oftentimes those two are not married, the spiritual assistance in psychological and mental health. It seems that the scientific community wants to negate the spiritual assistance that's needed. It is often an accoutrement to the required physical and mental therapy, or I'm sorry, the required psychological and mental therapy that is used or as a treatment for delinquency in children. So, and sometimes there are, you know, with this high intensity boot camp, there was some physical therapy or physical, I really wouldn't call it physical therapy. There was some physical exercise and redirection used to redirect certain behaviors. I also taught anger management, moral reasoning, and we did a lot of physical, rigorous activities to help rehabilitate our young men that were non-serious juvenile offenders. I later went on to work for a serious juvenile offender boot camp in Alabama, and that is where we saw some of the most atrocious crimes that these young men had committed against people of their own family, many of them. And up to and including murder. So, and I'm not really going to get into that because of their privacy, even though this happened many years ago. But I will tell you that while working in this facility, I did see young boys at the ages of as early as or as young as 9 who had the mindset and criminal behavior pattern of an adult at 9. And that's really something to think about, how that happens and occurs. Hold on one second. Let me plug my mic up because sometimes I don't think I'm talking loud enough. Okay, sorry about that. So oftentimes my chicken is crowing. My rooster. Oftentimes you will see this even in a daycare setting. You see the young child acting out in ways that you're like, okay, where is this child? Where is he or she picking up this behavior? And don't get me wrong, I'm not negating that we all are not, to some degree, a product of our environment. We are. And sometimes children are exposed to things at a very young age, which causes them to act out and develop deviant behavior patterns. But something deeper than that. There's something deeper than that because these behavioral patterns, in some cases, can be redirected with the appropriate therapy. It could be psychological analysis, and then they create some type of plan to redirect these behaviors or to create better coping mechanisms or to just eradicate the behavior altogether, different therapies and solutions. But sometimes you will find cases that's deeply rooted where you may have a child who even as a toddler felt jealous and envious or felt like he or she wasn't loved or was never enough or wasn't pretty or attractive or didn't have the attention or the affection of a parent. I brought in some emotional trauma from a past life. And as a young girl, I always felt like I had to do more, I had to be smarter, I had to do more than my older sibling to get the attention of my mother. And I know, from having healed some generational curses within our family, especially with my direct bloodline and me, stopping those generational curses from being perpetuated to another generation, my children. I understand where this deep-rooted emotional hurt came from. And I had to unearth that and address it and do the work of those, identifying where those feelings of inadequacy first came. So regardless of whether or not a parent contributed to those feelings and emotions or didn't properly nourish them or redirect them, I had to heal from within, if that makes any sense. And that past life traumatic stress showed up in relationships. I've been divorced twice. I've had some really rocky relationships, for the better part of my life. And that is customary, I think, for empresses and those who are child divine, earth angels, things of that nature. Okay, so it's not out of the ordinary. I am seeing a square on the screen, and I know I shouldn't be. So I'm not really sure where that's coming from. Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can fix that because it's aggravating me. I'm sorry. Okay, I can't get it to move, so hopefully you're not seeing this square to the right of my eye on this screen. If so, I am going to get off my lazy behind and learn more about my camera and start filming with my camera instead of on my laptop. But until then, anyway. So anyway, past life traumatic stress appeared in my life. It manifested and exhibited, it not manifested, but it showed up in different ways in my relationships. with the same sex and different sex. Like some of my friendships, I could see where feelings of inadequacy and feelings of, low self-esteem would show up. Also, I certainly noticed how it presented in my relationships, in marriages and dating and all of that for years. And so, I really had to search myself because there were times when I would go into deep depression and could not really understand where it was coming from. I knew that there was some unrequited love situations, and also, as Leos, and most of you who are on my channel, you're Leos, you will identify with this. When we love, we love. We love so unconditionally and so deeply that it's often not reciprocated, or we feel like it's unbalanced in some way because we know no depths to our love when we finally open up to someone. And so anyway, I would see it present itself in different ways, and I would see just repetitive patterns of choosing people or men in my life that were damaged, that were wounded warriors, if you will, that were emotionally unavailable, or they were missing something. They all needed, we all need work, but they needed more emotionally, and it was draining because I was trying to fix them or to fix myself so that I would be accepted by them. And some of you will identify with that as we go through, this topic. So basically, how does an unhealed emotional trauma carry from one life to the next? How does that happen? It sounds crazy, that we would be carrying baggage like that, but it definitely can happen because, as I mentioned about past lives, we've lived many lives and we incarnate as different characters each time we come back into this dimension. And your soul remains with you from life to life because it's energy and it transfers from one vessel to the next. And even though you may not remember anything about your past life, your soul maintains those memories from those lifetimes and keeps track of what we call unfinished business. And it pops up in the tarot too, readings with unfinished business, where you're separated from a soulmate or a soulmate twin flame, and that separation creates a lot of anxiety and a whole lot of emotion because it's unfinished. You're supposed to be with someone. You only have one twin flame, but you have maybe thousands of soulmates. And so when you're in separation from them, your heart longs to be with that person. Your soul remembers. Your eyes may not remember. My eyes did not remember or recall my soulmate when I saw him, but I think he had done some background research on me and my birth chart, and perhaps not only that, but they were very, my twin flame and their side of the family were very high-ranking occultists, so they knew certain things about me that I didn't know. The sister had mentioned having a dream about me, and so I'd never met her before. They are children of immigrants from Egypt. So, but anyway, I don't want to digress, but each of us have a certain degree of recollection and remembrance about our past life. Sometimes we will call it deja vu. We'll shake it off and say, well, I had a dream. Or some of us just flat out remember that past life or several past lives, or you will do a past life regression and it comes up, those memories. Others, you just, you have this sense of knowing, intuitively. or you become enlightened and more aware that this person and you carry a connection that's strong, that's divine, that is contractual, that is something that you just are compelled and drawn to this person, and you just don't know how to, reel yourself, you know, or to remove yourself from the situation. There has to be some type of cord cutting or divine intervention or some type of blockage from spirit guides to keep you away from this person, because you know intuitively you're supposed to be with them. So the soul remembers. The soul remembers every life. And sometimes through downloads, you're able to recall certain facts about a past life. For me, I do recall one past life in particular that came to me in a dream state, and I was being burned at the stake. My mother and father were amongst the crowd members, and I was about to be prosecuted, I guess you would say, in the worst way. And everyone was, dressed in these antebellum looking clothing down to their feet. Ladies were wearing these sweeping long dresses, and everything just looked old, like from the 16 or 1700s. And my parents were not my parents. They were spectators, because this was a public prosecution. So, and I knew them, but I didn't know them as my mother and father. They were much younger, and they looked like they were relatives. And they were standing around me as I was about to be burned. And it had something to do with my younger brother, whom I had accidentally hurt, and it caused his death. And I was trying to explain my case that it was an accident, and I don't recall how he died, but the villagers and the officials were not listening. So anyway, I recall that I remember waking up in a very cold sweat, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible, and I longed to be up out of that dream. But I realized it was much more powerful than a dream. It was a past life that I was recalling in detail, that I can recall the details right now. And this dream I had about 6 years ago, right down to what people were wearing, what it smelled like, what it felt like, what the season was, the geographical location, which is a small town where I grew up, everything with amazing detail. So, but oftentimes we don't remember all of our past lives. When I went to Egypt, I did pick up on things that I should not have known, locations I was able to navigate and had never been there before. As far as I could recall in this vessel, in this lifetime, for sure. My first time was when I was 34, 5 years old. And then I went several times after that, but I was able to inculcate with a culture, walk around, go to different places, historic places there that I should not have known where the location was. And so, but I couldn't, recall the details of being in Cairo as remarkable as I could recall the details from that previous past life in which I was put to death. Okay, so that's a lot, but some of you this may resonate with you. You're able to recall your past lives, and what I want you to take away from this is that there are times when whether you recall your past lives or not, your soul recalls that. It remembers each and every one, whereas your vessel may not. Okay, and so that is how we're able to take in the past generational trauma or the past life trauma from one life to the next. The physical body bears this burden, and sometimes is not able to relate to anything that's happening in this dimension with this vessel, that it can attribute to, or it could attribute this level of trauma too. It's like, okay, I'm only 12. Why do I feel this way? Why do I have this phobia of this or this phobia of that? Or why do I feel inadequate or lack of self-confidence? Or why am I fearless? And why do I, the soul recalls that. And so the body responds to those recollections, even though it does not remember and always understand them. Okay. And so, let's see, let me look at my notes here. When we carry unhealed past trauma into our present life, it often manifests as some distressing issue that is somehow related to the original event. That's like when you have the different phobias, or you keep finding yourself drawn to a certain type of person, or culture, race, religion, spirituality. You're going to be drawn to that because in some way it's familiar to you, although you cannot recall in this life having experienced it. So when past life trauma surfaces from current life issues, it triggers past life traumatic stress disorder. And as a result, you may have these fears and phobias and panic attacks that show up. Okay. They are listing some examples of how this could happen. I like my examples better, but here are some that may resonate with you. If you've ever been severely punished for not following rules in the past life, you may have an irrational fear of authority. My younger brother, he's kind of a rebel. He's also a Leo. And so he's had a lot of run-ins with the law. And I do believe that he's carrying with him some past life traumatic stress. And he may also be carrying with him some other entity that may have attached itself to our bloodline. Okay. If you've ever been rejected or abandoned in a past life, you may have a fear of being abandoned in this life, never feeling adequate in a relationship or fulfilled. That might show up and sabotage your relationships. If you were ever enslaved or imprisoned in a past life, you may have an irrational fear of losing your freedom, or you may not be able to function in a loving relationship because you may feel that it's too close and too confining for you because of incarceration or enslavement. Okay. If you were excommunicated for voicing your beliefs or taking a stand in a past life, you may see that present itself as a fear of public speaking, or just a very introverted personality and not wanting to share your true emotions with someone. Okay. So when the same type of trauma is experienced in more than one lifetime, past life scars can become amplified. You really are supposed to learn what you need to learn in one karmic cycle or in one cycle. But if you don't, and you're hard-headed, and you keep hitting your head on the wall over and over again, this trauma becomes amplified. And with each repetitive experience, the symptoms of past life traumatic stress disorder intensifies. So there you have a classic case for someone with some very toxic behavior, and it seems like they are fundamentally flawed, or they're just evil to the core, as a result of having these past life traumatic stress disorders manifesting over and over again because they've not learned from their karmic cycle. And they may also have a situation where there's some generational curse or entity attached to the family or the bloodline. So, make sure I'm covering everything here. So triggers. With this traumatic stress disorder, you'll see different triggers, and people may be drawn to medicate in different ways. They know something is not right with them. They know that there's this void in them, so they may drink or they may become addicted to different things. This is where you'll see addictions. Addictions are tied to a lot of past life traumatic stress disorders. Addictions are tied to a lot of negative entities because we get into our lower vibrational frequencies, and that's when entities are able to attach to us those familiar spirits, okay, attached to us that ordinarily if we were vibing high and in a better spiritual frame of mind, we wouldn't succumb to such psychic, spiritual, satanic attacks. And in some cases, it's not anything you can avoid because it may be a collective group of cult members that are doing this. Okay. All right. These things resonate with me. Traumatic. The panic attacks you could have, but also some of us have different flashbacks from a past life or that death, and this resonates with me tremendously. I have a serious phobia of large bodies of water and drowning. I have a phobia of heights, as if I always feel like at some point I could fly and something failed and I lost my life in flight somehow or another. But I do fly often, and that's not a problem. But if I'm, like, for instance, if I'm up very high or trying to get on a roof or something like that, I was actually in Zunitunich on an excursion and going up one of the Mayan pyramids. And going up, I'm okay, you know, and I'm traversing the steps, and I'm being very careful along with the others that went with us on this excursion. But somehow or another, I looked down and looked around and freaked out, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I, in that instant, felt like I had been there before and I had jumped or had been pushed, and all I could think of and see was how I was falling and weightlessness, and just, it was terrible. So I ended up having to crawl, and the guide had to buckle me up, and I crawled until I got low enough that I was no longer panicking. So for someone who experienced death by falling from a heights, you may be deathly afraid of heights, or if you ever died by drowning, you may have an irrational fear of water or being burned alive. I love fire. I'm soothed by fire, and which is crazy, but if you've ever perished, they said an example, if you've ever perished in a building, you may have an irrational fear of fire. Remembering a past life of being burned at the stake, I don't fear fire to that degree. As a young child, I did, and then I began to embrace it, and now it's no longer a phobia that I have. That's heightened or irrational. If you were ever killed by an animal, some people have fear of dogs like that, and they have this fear of dogs that manifest. If you were ever accused of being a witch or burned at the stake for possessing psychic power, you could have an irrational fear of sharing your gifts. Now, I do have that. For years, I would never say anything about my psychic abilities. I would pick up on things, I would see things, I would sense things with animals, birds, inanimate objects, picking up on energy. I would see different things manifest. But I would never say anything because, ridicule, fear of being told you were crazy, or even worse, thinking that you were crazy and believing that you were crazy. So, and then the fear of losing people that I love as a result of revealing psychic powers. So some of you that may, resonate with you as well. So, all right. And if you're able to recall a death incident, that could certainly put you back into reliving that experience and cause anxiety through nightmares and night terrors. And many of you as children and probably as adults have that. Wherever past life trauma manifests as current day issues, it's never due to punishment or karma. Instead, past life trauma is carried from life to life in order to support our human survival and spiritual evolution. You're meant to learn the lesson of a past life and to go on and to ascend. This is a part of an ascension process that we all must go through. You're never supposed to have to go through the karmic cycles over and over and over again. It's designed to expand your faith and your spirituality, expand your chakra and your heart, and your, openness to, spiritual intuition and enlightenment. Okay. Additionally, when emotional wounds are healed during your human incarnation, you master certain virtues that your souls were intended to attain. You get it. You understand. You understand the soulmate connection. You understand the karmic connection. You know the difference. You get out of that perpetual cycle. Does it cost sometimes financially, meaning you have to walk away from something, split your assets, leave the home, break up the family? Yeah. Sometimes that is it, because you may incarnate here with a karmic family. Karmic members of the family that you're supposed to break away from and go towards your soul tribe and your twin flame. And oftentimes we don't get it right, when we get comfortable in the karmic life cycle that we've created for ourselves, which is a distraction from your true purpose, your true life purpose, and your true life family. Okay. Past life fears keep us from taking risky behaviors, but it also provides us opportunity to attain virtues. And so fulfilling our dreams, living our full potential, that's what we're here for, to grow and to ascend. Okay. So, remember that this is not happening to you. It's really happening for you so that you can ascend and that you can be able to differentiate between what serves you a greater purpose and what does not. Okay? All right. So, let's see. How do we heal past life trauma? Some people have to do, past life regression, hypnosis, and they go back and they remember one or more of their past lives that they've experienced, and they try to fix that area. Once they've identified it, then they work with a practitioner that will help them align their values so that they can learn the lesson this cycle, during this cycle, and during this incarnation. Sometimes just remembering that past life is enough. It's like, okay, now I understand where to put this. Now I understand why I am this way. Now I understand why I have these issues. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. My animals are walking back and forth in front of my window, and the Ring camera is picking them up, so you may hear that. I apologize. And then there are other things that you will need to do, maybe work with a spiritual practitioner. And because I'm adept at dealing with this, I've seen it in my own immediate and nuclear family. I do have some insight and techniques to assist with this. If you are interested in, on different segments as I present more information and research to you and discuss this topic more, I will start opening up counseling sessions for those who are dealing or suspect that they're dealing with past life trauma. Okay. So, with that being said, I think I don't want to make this video too long. Some of our segments may be longer in the future, up to an hour, because we're going to start branching off into some other things. Of course, we will continue to do tarot, but I want to make sure that I fulfill my life purpose as an educator and someone who is pouring into my soul tribe. With that being said, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And for these type of videos, I'm going to put this in a separate segment so that you can find them a lot easier on a separate playlist, okay? And so this will be the first video of a series on our past life traumatic stress disorder. All right, family, thank you so much for being the very best part of why I'm here. I appreciate your support, your love, your happy birthday wishes. And for those of you who are, have upcoming birthdays, happy birthday to you. We'll continue to do some special things. As always, take care of yourself and each other. Have a great evening until next time.